All right. We're getting there. We're getting there. Here we go. Get all of our stuff set up. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Political Fixer Live. I am your host this evening, Shauna Presley Vircher, and this one promises to be a doozy. For those of you that are new to Political Fixer Live, we are picking some of the top stories in the nation, either the top things that everyone is talking about, or in some cases, including tonight, some of those stories that we feel like people are not talking about enough. And part of that conversation definitely involves you, no matter where you are tuning in from, whether it is on TikTok, on YouTube, or on Substack. We welcome our political fixer family to jump in and be a part of the conversation. We want to know what your questions are, what your thoughts are. Do you have expertise or information that the rest of us should know about that you could share with the class? Because we're definitely not experts on everything around here, and we've got a great community definitely ready to jump in and share with with the group and guide some really great conversation. Now, I wish that just for 1 week I could come into Political Fixer Live and just not really have a lot to talk about. That is not going to be the case this week. I assure you, we had to cut it off, and I'm kind of cheating with the number of stories to try to shove it in this week. And here's the thing, we are going to turn this into something positive. We always try to do that, and this week is no exception. We are going to focus ultimately on the good, but I'm going to give you a warning right now. You are going to want to monitor your blood pressure this week because there's just so much. I kept finding myself just getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So, we're going to breathe it down. We're going to be there for each other, and we're going to make sure that we cover this, but we don't leave each other despondent and helpless. All right. This is going to be just a lot to discuss. We are eventually going to come out of everything and focus on the sunshine. But in this episode, there's quite a bit of rain. In fact, we're going to be talking about other things falling from the sky. We're going to do a quick rundown of the top 5 stories that I am keeping an eye on this week, why I'm watching them, why you should care, and what a quick update is. We're also going to do a talk about, of course, the kudos to all of you. Congratulations on an amazing No Kings protest weekend. We're going to talk about what happened, put some of the numbers that we're seeing into perspective, because I don't think people realize just how phenomenal this was. So we'll talk about that and the impact, both short and long term. And we are also, if you like Political Fixer story time, if you've joined us on Political Fixer Live before, you know that sometimes we have story time around here where I start telling you about someone or something. We don't always know exactly where it's going to go. And then, bam, it hits you exactly how it's related to the events of today. That context that so many times I feel is desperately needed. I want to say hello to everyone in our Political Fixer family, and I especially want to say hi to, of course, our production team. We have Sarah, our producer and chief of staff here. We have Jay Robot, making sure that everyone plays nicely and keeps their hands and arms inside of the vehicle. And then we have some of our Political Fixer family members. I see Eats Meets West Bestie. I see Marlene ML. I see Katie Rondeau just joined. Terry just joined. So welcome to everyone. Make sure you put in your questions and your comments in here. I'm going to do my best to get to as many of them as possible, but I promise you, whatever I don't get to, our community is more than willing to help. Okay. Before we dive in on our theme, I want you to brace yourselves for just a second. I'm going to give you a definition. The definition of the word contempt. Overall, the definition is a mindset of disdain or looking down on someone as unworthy. Now, if you look at the Cambridge definition, it's a little bit more pointed. It says a strong feeling of disliking and having no respect for someone or something. Our theme from this evening is contempt. There are so many ways that the American people are being shown contempt by those who have sworn an oath to serve us. And if you're struggling like I was a little bit this week to just articulate and categorize some of the feelings that you've been having with some of what you've been seeing, that's where I landed. I'm hoping that that helps you. I landed on contempt. I also want to say hi to 75 Corvette and Kelly. Hello, so many people. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you. All right, 3,000 likes as we get started this evening. Let's see if we keep up the positivity because, again, this is going to be a little bit tough. All right, contempt. Let's start with the congratulations. Congratulations to anyone who participated in, amplified, helped to organize, shared information, anything at all having to do with the No Kings protests this weekend. Let's hear from all of you. I want to know, did you participate? If you feel comfortable, tell us where. Just generally the city if you feel comfortable. If not, we understand. And if you want to, share your favorite poster or sign or scene that you had. I see frogs coming in. um, and FIFA is alive and well. I see Minneapolis, Newark, Delaware, Buckeye, Arizona, Times Square. Oh, I'm jealous. Lake Mary, Florida, right down my road there. Michigan. I see small towns, Hastings, Michigan's. I see that Nev helped to organize the protests in Sioux City, Iowa. Nev, of course you did. You're always doing amazing things for the cause here. Aztec, New Mexico, Flower Bell in Massachusetts. So if you did participate, I definitely want to hear if you feel comfortable where you were from and if you want to share with the group what was your favorite poster or moment that you saw. And while you're sharing all of that positivity, let me layer some more on. I want to put these protests into context of just how phenomenal your work was. They estimate that 7 million people attended, over 7 million people. Some of the estimates go as high as 8.7, but a lot of the trades and publications are landing at 7 million as a safe estimate. So we're going to go with that 7 million number. Over 2,600 different events in places like metropolitan cities and rural parts of the country participated. Over 2,600 different locations, large and small. And I want to put that 7 million number into context for you. First of all, some people say that Earth Day was the largest protest, but actually, what people believe is that at about 1 to 2 million people participated in the protest side of Earth Day in 1970, and that most of the crowd were observers. So, we're going to put a little asterisk in all of this, depending on your interpretation of Earth Day in the year 1970. Based on how you feel about that interpretation, this protest was either the largest or the second largest protest in all of US history, all of American history, every single large event that you can possibly think of. The March on Selma, Martin Luther King's speech, the recent protests where people wore the pink hats, all right? Like 7 million people is the largest protest, or if you prefer second largest, if you believe Earth Day requires that top spot, in United States history. Let me just do a rundown of others. Let me just do the top 8. So there was No Kings that just happened. Second place, the last No Kings in June. So there was the No Kings in June. That's in second place with an estimated 5 million. I don't know of a lot of events that you jump from 5 million to 7 million, but you all did it. So congratulations. Close is in 1986. There was a Hands Across America protest. I am old enough to vaguely remember that. In 2017, there was the Women's March. The hands off our bodies or the bands off our bodies, depending on how you like to phrase it. That was the number 5 protest, the largest protest in all of American history. The March for Our Lives, which was about gun control, was the 6th largest protest in 2018. Then you had Earth Day, according to estimates of who actually protested. And then in 2018, there was a second Women's March, which was ginormous, 1.5 million people. So as a frame of reference, the largest 8 events that have happened as a form of protest in our American history, 6 of them, 6 out of 8 were under this president. 6 out of 8 of them were under this guy. And even so, it bothered him. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but I want to add a couple more context points on this. All right. First of all, 7 million is huge. How huge is it? It is state of Massachusetts, every human inside it, huge. It is large as the state of Massachusetts. If this protest was a state, then it would be the 17th largest state. There would be 34 states beneath it. You'd have the 16 real states that are larger, you'd have this protest, and then you would have 34 other United States of America that would be smaller than this protest was. I just want you to feel that for just a second because, again, there's that saying, I've said it here on the program before. There's a psychological expression that people know 4 numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, and many. Um, Anything over 3, and our brain kind of has trouble understanding the context. So, this is amazing. And I hope you take a moment and congratulate yourselves. There's another number that I'd like to give you, and that number is 0. 0. For weeks, we were told how these protests were going to be I hate America protests, how they were going to be filled with terrorists and Antifa, and how there was going to be violence just rampaging through our streets, right? 0. 0 arrests of actual protesters out of 7 million. Have any of you been to Mardi Gras? Have you been to something similar? Right? Because there are arrests. They happen just as a part of people. Have any of you been to a Philadelphia Eagles football game? There are arrests that happen when this many people get together. That is usually something that naturally occurs, just law of averages. And yet, 0 reported arrests having to do with the protesters themselves. There were 9 known arrests of MAGA people getting violent towards protesters, but 0 arrests of protesters. In fact, the New York City Police Department tweeted out more than 100,000 people gathered across all 5 of the city's boroughs. No protest related arrests were made. Welcome to the resistance, NYPD. Other police departments made similar posts clarifying just for everyone involved. Actually, no, it was good. Everything was good. And part of that was you all going in prepared, focused, making sure that you didn't get sidetracked or tricked with anyone that was trying to gin up any kind of violence or any type of ill will. But let's give credit where credit is due. While all of you deserve so much of it, we've got to take a moment and thank our friends that set the tone for the entire event. And I'm speaking, of course, of led by the Portland Frog, all of our inflatable creatures that joined us for this movement. We couldn't possibly have done it without you, or at least it wouldn't have been the same. While people were saying that there's all of this violence, there's going to be militants, that we're just a bunch of angry terrorists, all of these awful, hateful, just inappropriate comments being made by people who, again, took an oath to actually serve us, but whatevs. While all of that was happening, that narrative was being completely demolished with music, sometimes bubbles, a lot of dancing, and hundreds and hundreds of inflatables. It was so prominent that the New York Times published a piece. Highly recommend, by the way. I don't often recommend the New York Times these days, but this was a great piece. It's Gary Steingart wrote this piece. Gary Steingart. I'm going to spell his name for you. It is Steygart. Steingart, I think. And I apologize, Gary, if I mispronounced your name. But the article's super easy to find because all you have to do is search for the inflatable chicken resistance. That's right, the inflatable chicken resistance. I want to read you a couple of quotes from Gary's article. He said, Frivolity and absurdity are kryptonite to authoritarians who project a stern father archetype to their followers. Once the pants are lowered and the undies of the despot are glimpsed, there is no point of return. Now, Gary talked about his own experience attending an event in the Chicago area, and he said it, quote, seemed as family friendly as daycare, which is weird how Gary and about 100,000 other people walk the street of Chicago in an environment that's as friendly as daycare to children. And yet we're being told that these streets are so unsafe that we have to tear gas people and send armed ICE agents there. It's so odd. I just don't know who to believe. Here is something that I thought was really poignant about Gary's piece. He said, they demonstrated, meaning all of you, especially those in the inflatable costumes, they demonstrated what one version of unity against oppression can look like. What is happening to us, meaning America, is as serious as a guillotine. We must harness our best, creative, humorous, and frivolous selves in order to keep it from falling. Really poignant words. Again, that is Gary Steingart in the New York Times, but you can search for the inflatable chicken resistance. My only nitpicky thing is, I feel like the frog should have gotten top billing. I would have liked the inflatable frog resistance, but that's just me. I feel like the frog deserves a little love for kicking off this movement. All right. I see so many people that are responding to all of this with your different. I see Hastings, Sioux City, Iowa, Wayne, Nebraska, Sterling, Illinois. I see a little bit of a storytelling here. Thank you so much for sharing about your experiences. I see Casey Rich 77 saying 777. Got to get you all three of those lucky numbers, Casey. I went with my granddaughter in North Carolina, wore a frog costume. There were 600 people in a small town. It looks like Lillington, North Carolina. That's amazing. Square Foot Gardening, I knew you would be on this call, saying that you just got off of the follow up with Indivisible, wanted to be on it, but of course, prepping for the show. So be sure to share what you learned with all of us or email me later, girl. I know you got the email address. Hoosier Mama said, I was unable to attend a protest, but I'm so proud of all of you who did. Thank you. Thank you. Hoosier Mama, I know a lot of people share that sentiment. Protests are not for everyone. It's particularly difficult for those who need childcare or care for an aging parent or have a disability. So we know it's not for everyone. So the fact that 7 million people rearranged their lives to fit it in, just know that there were at least that many at home cheering you on. Kathy McGrath Walcott giving her woohoo cheers with exclamation points. East Meets West says the best thing in the NYC protest was a giant baby 47 in a diaper. East Meets West also saying 7 big cities and an estimated 2,700 other cities and towns. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love Lulu's update. A small rural town in upstate New York had 1,800 people show up. Absolutely amazing. And you weren't the only ones who noticed. It was on nearly every news channel and on the front page of almost every newspaper of record across the country. And the response, rather than backtracking or, just shutting up, which is also an option, after saying that this was going to be violent and it's a hate America rally and all these things, rather than do anything, the administration responded. I will tell you that I was working and I saw parts of the reaction to this, and I didn't understand what I was reading. And I don't know if you have ever jumped into the middle of a social media story where you're trying to figure out what the heck happened and you keep going down and trying to get more context. And eventually I reached the bottom. In fact, one could say we all did, because how 47 reacted, and I verified this, he posted an AI generated video on his social platform where he was wearing a crown, piloting a fighter jet like a big boy, and then he dumps what appears to be feces on AI generated protesters. President of the United States, everyone. The theme again is contempt. The theme for today is contempt. I understand how many things we just get hit with that we're like, just trying to absorb and live our lives in some sort of way, and have some just a little bit of mental health and happiness that we hang on to. But we got to stop for a second and say that this is absolutely not normal. It is absolutely not okay. And I want to say that there's images that he either created or likely had someone create of Americans practicing their constitutional rights to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and he literally pictures us as being beneath him and garbage. We are waste. Contempt. So anger, of course, with just like, who do you think you are, is my go to response. But I got to stop for a second and let's take this somewhere positive. That was a lot of effort to make your little fancy video and all of the imagery. And but you could have just said nothing, dude, but you couldn't, could you? You had to say something. Let's dissect why that is. Because we're at an interesting point with this personality type. We've heard of psychopaths, we've heard of narcissists. We've heard of dictators or authoritarians. We got a toddler with low intelligence that's all three. That is pretty remarkable by historical standards, but it's also pretty interesting by psychological standards. An authoritarian doesn't fear violence. They feel like they're untouchable, but they do fear rejection. The idea of people rising up against them is one of their greatest fears. And there was nowhere you could look without seeing a sea of people, right? There was nowhere for him to escape. You guys were in his face, metaphorically speaking. On top of that, narcissists cannot survive without validation. They need people to not just serve them, they need them to like them. And here is this giant Snow White type magic mirror, and it is showing quite the opposite. These were not people that you could mistake as being pro 47. You could absolutely not mistake it. That description of the baby doll in a diaper, the countless posters, everybody knew what this was. Even him and his little addled brain, he knew what it was and he couldn't escape it. He needs to be liked, and here's millions of people that do not like him. These aren't just noise. This is why he lashes out. Whatever he says about Soros funded this or this is Antifa, he knows. And it is bothering him, and it shatters this illusion that everyone loves him, that he's got these high approval ratings. It shatters it. And it also sends messages to everyone else around the world that we do not stand with him. It was powerful imagery, super, super important. So I want to congratulate you in actually being the ones to cause that to happen. It's so easy to just not know if you're supposed to show up. Will you be the only ones to show up? Is it the right thing to do? Will it get violent? There was a lot of concerns, and yet so many of you did. 7 million of you. Now, before we move on, welcome to those of you just joining us on Political Fixer Live, our top story of the evening. We are talking about the impact of the No Kings protests. We're talking about the impact that all of you made, the fact that there were zero arrests. That, again, phenomenal. I can't even process that. The fact that on record it is one of the largest, if not the largest, American protests in history, history. The fact that you are sending such a strong message that we are not going to yield to this guy or any one of his minions who are doing awful things in his name. And it's also a message that, listen, this is an insulated guy. He has yes people and just bootlickers all around him. Think about it. No one is allowed around him unless they lick his boots. I don't know if any of you have seen those cabinet meetings where they go around the table and say amazing things about him. He has billionaires that give him little gifts and say how amazing he is. And even in that disgusting, psychotic bubble, you made it in. You made it in. You managed to get to this guy peacefully, joyfully, collectively, that is amazing. And I just think that we should celebrate the victories when we have them and, just remarkable. Speaking of remarkable, I want to give shout outs to our political fixer family, including Guava Girl, Kathy McGrath Walcott, Veronica Kernard, Square Foot Gardening, Marlene, Stephanie, uh, is it Ian Yeri? I want to make sure I have this right, Sarah. I think I may have read that incorrectly. East meets Westy Bestie. This is so on my phone where we filmed this East West. I don't see your whole name; it cuts off. But Sarah just put it here. So love your full handle here. East meets Westy Bestie. Um, and oh, I guess you used to be 75 Corvette. That's amazing. Okay, so welcome to you and so many others. We're at 27,000 likes. I want to keep this positive energy going as we talk about contempt. It's going to be hard because we're going to cover the top 5 other stories that I'm following that illustrate the contempt that this administration feels for its citizens. And after that, if you stick with us, I've got one of those stories that takes a shocking twist. And I'm going to give credit to the TikToker that I first saw this on, but everything is verified. So that is our story coming up. All right. Let's start with a story that now a lot of outlets are starting to cover that has taken a new turn. I'm talking about the contempt for our election process, our rules governing that election process, and the voters, shown by none other than Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, as he continues to refuse to swear in Congresswoman elect Adelita Grijalva. She was elected in a special election in Arizona's 7th district after her father passed away. She won a very heavily crowded primary and then the general election. I want to say a few things here for context. Number one, this race was 4 weeks ago. It happened on September 23rd. Number two, the election results are not in dispute. It was not close, as in around 70-30, not even close. No one is disputing the actual results of the election. And another point of context, when members of the House of Representatives are elected, they are elected for at most 2-year terms. This is a little different, probably shorter because it's a special election. Neither here nor there. Here's my point. At the most, this is a 2-year term. Mike Johnson has stolen a month of that term. 4% of that term was stolen, and he has no constitutional authority to do so. I'm not the only one that thinks so. In fact, we have new developments on this story, which is that the Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays, spelled with a K, female Chris Mays, just FYI if you're looking for her, has officially filed a lawsuit against the U.S. House of Representatives seeking to ensure that Adelita Grijalva is sworn in as a duly elected member of Congress. Um, I'm going to read a quote from this from Attorney General Mays. Speaker Mike Johnson is actively stripping the people of Arizona of one of their seats in Congress and disenfranchising the voters by blocking her from taking her rightful oath of office. He is subjecting Arizona's 7th congressional district to taxation without representation. An oldie but a goodie, taxation without representation. Throw that tea in the harbor. All right. She says, I will not allow Arizonans to be silenced or treated as second class citizens in their own democracy. Woo. Okay. Um, want to say that more than 800,000 people are represented in this district. So right now they have 0 representation. So that means that she doesn't get to vote in this extremely important budget fight that they're having right now, which impacts millions of people and their healthcare and all aspects of our government budget. And also, she doesn't get to be the 218th signature on the petition to discharge or release the Epstein files, which is what I personally believe this is actually all about. His excuses have been, oh, I didn't see her. She didn't bring her family. So I didn't think she actually wanted to be sworn in. I'll swear her in anytime, to now I think we're down to new phone. Who dis? Like, we have no actual reason or legal precedent that he's given. And yes, just to answer the question, because I looked it up, there is no issue with swearing in a congressperson while the government is shut down. In fact, it has been done many times before this. So, yes, I see Lulu echoing it is about the files because they are all in it. There's a lot of things on Mike Johnson. We could do an entire episode on Mike Johnson, but him being in the Epstein files would not exactly surprise me, except, I don't know if he ever hung out with these people, but that man has some secrets. We'll do an episode on him at some point. So, we definitely want to keep an eye on this story. So, we've talked about contempt being the theme of tonight's Political Fixer Live. Contempt for the electoral process is definitely a story I'm following. These are not in any particular order, but that second story that I'm following, contempt for sick children. Strange one. And yet this administration has exhibited it. Contempt for small children. The National Institute of Health, which is part of the US Department of Health and Human Services, has been doing budget cuts and budget cuts and budget cuts. And we are seeing more threats of budget cuts during this shutdown as a way to teach Democrats a lesson for sticking up for healthcare for other people. I don't know. Don't think about it too much. You'll get a migraine. But here is the point. These types of cuts don't just hurt Democrats. They don't just hurt Republicans. That's not usually how actual government works. It might be how politics sometimes works, but government is not how that's not how it works. And in fact, some of the people that are going to be harmed by this are sick children. This includes those who rely on care and research done by St. Jude's Children's Hospital. It is estimated that around $150 million that is utilized for medical research and supporting services for that research is going to be cut or has been cut, depending on which lawyer or judge you ask, from St. Jude's budget alone. Now, there's some discussion. People tried to research grants. What is this actually used for? Is it waste? So let's not dig through paperwork and get into an interpretation of government grant filings. Let's actually ask St. Jude's Hospital themselves. This is what the CEO of St. Jude's said. This is an exact quote of what this funding does. It says, cancer is the leading cause of death by disease for children in the United States. The mission of St. Jude is to advance cures and means of prevention for catastrophic diseases through research and treatment. Our cutting edge research requires everything from buildings and laboratories to high performance computing. It also requires the people who wash glassware, repair equipment, schedule meetings, and ensure patients are kept safe on clinical trials so that scientists can focus on doing the research. These structures are made possible by payments from federal grants, which is why federal grant support is key to the pursuit of our mission. But here's the punchline. And again, this is coming from St. Jude's itself, St. Jude's Children's Hospital. These cuts likely mean fewer new treatments will be developed for children, and therefore, fewer children will be saved. Now, I want to be clear here. These are not budget cuts that they're disputing right now. This is not because of the shutdown. This was already something the administration was getting rid of and gleefully. This is some of the RFK Jr. I don't know what I'm doing, but the brainworm told me to take money away from these people round of cuts. And it includes children with cancer, contempt, contempt, even for some of the most vulnerable in our country. Absolute contempt. And children are not the only ones vulnerable right now in our country. There is contempt for the safety of our citizens. Wisconsin State Senator Chris Larson shared spending data that he pulled about ICE's budget because, again, immigrants oftentimes, not always, some of them build a successful life for themselves here. And that's exactly what we want and what we celebrate. But many immigrants come here as some of the most vulnerable humans fleeing just absolutely unfathomable circumstances. And yet we're picking on them. So, State Senator Chris Larson of Wisconsin shared, and we verified this, that ICE is stockpiling arms, weapons. In fact, they have increased their spending for small arms by 700%. These purchases have been confirmed, and ICE is not a military operation. ICE doesn't travel to different parts of the globe and fight bad guys. These weapons are meant to be deployed here against us on American soil. These weapons include chemical weapons, guided missile warheads, and explosive components. I'm going to say that again. ICE, who works for us, is getting paid by our tax dollars and is invading our cities unwelcomed and unwanted, is upping the game. They are stockpiling chemical weapons, guided missile warheads, and explosive components, I guess, to be used against us. I don't know who else they would be used against because, again, they do not fight foreign wars at all. Now, why do you need chemical weapons and missiles in America? Perhaps it's to keep us safe. Maybe it's not for us. Maybe it's to keep us safe against people like Amon Solomon. Forgive me if it's Amon. We've talked about him on our show before. Mr. Solomon has been the subject of our show before when we were following his original detention. He is a children's hospital chaplain in Cincinnati. He was detained for 73 days. 73 days. A chaplain, a religious figure who serves in a children's hospital, was detained for 73 days. He was recently released. Not that it should matter, but just in case you're curious, he's here legally, has always been here legally. His paperwork was legal from day one. They just didn't bother to check. There was no trial. He never appeared in front of an immigration judge as part of this detention. You might be wondering, why is he here? Good question. He was seeking asylum from Egypt because he was tortured by his government for standing up for democracy in his home country. Wow, a chaplain who cares about children, who stands up for democracy and what's right for others. So glad we caught that bad guy. It somehow gets grosser. Cincinnati Children's Hospital fired two other chaplains, one for attending a vigil for their coworker, and the other for giving media interviews asking for his release. What is happening? I just feel like aliens came down and they didn't take us, they just randomly zapped spinal cords of some of us, and we just don't know it yet until they do something asinine like this. Solomon, even after being detained and told that he was abused, he will not go into detail about that. Instead, he pivots the conversation and says everyone was abused and no one deserved it. He's begging for the release of other people who are held without any due process. But he did call on the hospital to rehire his former colleagues. He says, I think my friends did the right thing by advocating. I was facing death back in Egypt. I know those who made the decision to fire them got a lot of pushback. I think they should be back on their jobs now. He's this guy captured for 73 days by a second government, by the way, already tortured by one, captured by a second one. He's still talking about others. Let me tell you what he said in a speech, I think at a No Kings rally, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. He said, the greatest fear of an oppressor is not weapons, it is not political pressure, it is an awakened, righteous anger. That is the greatest fear. That's what he says. All right, let's keep going on our contempt stories before we take some more of your comments. We're at 47,000 likes. I got two more. And again, I warned you, we got to look at that blood pressure, but we're going to take it back down in just a bit. Bear with me, folks. We got two more contempt stories. This administration is showing contempt for homeowners and realtors. I know. Okay, so we've talked about soybean farmers that are going bankrupt and pleading for relief because we have just screwed up this tariff situation so badly, and he's giving all of this money to Argentina. Now it's just a whole big mess. We've talked about how the tariffs are driving small businesses under. He doesn't seem to care. But homeowners and realtors came in the spotlight as a subject of what's happening right now, because with all of the different departments that are being shut down with no real hurry to open them, unless we give up on ever wanting healthcare again. One of the departments that has been closed is the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program. And what this program does is it insures nearly 5 million properties in the United States that are in flood zones. So these properties are stably fine. They get inspected, but they need this special insurance because a regular like State Farm or something like that is not going to insure these properties because they're in a flood zone. So, in order to buy or sell a property and also to be secure while you have a mortgage, then you have to have flood insurance for these properties. That's where the government used to step in and provide insurance for up to 5 million homes. And right now, that department is closed, which means new policies can't be issued. Ooh, follow me here. So, if you're trying to renew your policy, it's still hurricane season. You can't. And if you're trying to buy a home or sell a home that's in one of these flood zones, you can't because they're not working right now. So the entire industry is in disarray. In Florida alone, then 25,000 real estate closings a month are estimated to be impacted by this. That is a huge economic hit. If you are trying to move to start a new job, you can't sell your old house. If you're a real estate agent and you did all the stuff you were supposed to do, you found a match, buyer and seller, you can't keep growing your business and getting the revenue from that closing. If you're someone that's trying to start a new job or a new life somewhere in one of these homes, you can't because you can't get flood insurance. Yeah. So, contempt just for our businesses, for our real estate, for our homeowners. They don't care. They do not care. Again, we're beneath them. We're beneath them. I don't know if he's going to show a fighter jet video where he relieves himself of his senior moments um, and his bad digestive issues on some of these Florida homes in a video. I don't know. I don't know. But that brings us to our number 5 contempt story. Contempt that this administration is showing for the people that it swore an oath to protect. Our number 5 story is my top blood pressure rising story of the week. And I am talking about contempt for American history. Woo, I've got some twists and turns. I don't know how many of you saw it, but yesterday I posted a TikTok video on this story. We have new developments since that video has posted and new context to that video. I don't know how many of you saw the photograph, but currently the east wing of our White House is being destroyed. I don't mean in a theoretical sense, like there's awful humans and that thing is going to be need to be saged and scrubbed down. That's not what I mean, though that as well. I mean literally, if you have not seen it, this is a photo of a wrecking crew that is an east wing of the White House. Current photo, wrecking crew. If that corridor looks familiar to you, if you've never been in the White House but you want some context, I'm going to show you my favorite photo of yesteryear from that photo, from that same corridor from a different angle. This is my favorite photo from that angle. President Obama running with Bo. That hallway is gone. That window right there, gone. Why? For a ballroom, for a golden ballroom where we can reach more and more people to come and lay riches at the feet of dear leader. 200 million was the original estimate, 250 is the current estimate. For perspective, all of the funding that I was talking about that's going to cost children their lives that are waiting on cancer treatments with St. Jude's, that was $150 million. That was about half of what this ballroom is going to cost, just so we're clear on priorities. And that's what a budget is. It is priorities. And on top of that, this entire thing is predicated on a big fat lie, which is, and I'm going to read the quote. This is 47 talking about the ballroom being asked if it would damage the current White House. This is a quote. He says, "It won't interfere with the current building. It won't be. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building," which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite. Okay, we should have known he was lying. Partially, he was speaking. So that was our first clue. But when he does like the extra language like that, like I have total respect. I'm the biggest fan. Anytime he goes above and beyond and says things like that, you know it is the biggest lie. But there's another reason we should have known that he was lying. I'm going to cite an article by Jeff Tiedrich on this. I highly recommend that you check it out. That's Jeff Tiedrich. I'm going to spell his name Tiedrich. He wrote an article on Substack titled Convicted Felon Vandalizes White House. Worth your time. I'm going to pull a couple of his research points. So thank you, Jeff. And I appreciate all of your articles. Actually, you're one of my faves. Okay, we should have known that this was a lie. Why? I want to go back in a time machine. The year is 1929, and there was a building known as the Bonwit Teller Building. It was named by American Architect magazine as a sparkling jewel of New York. And 47 purchased that building to turn it into the monstrosity now known as his tower in Manhattan. But he promised he was going to keep it intact. In fact, he said he was the biggest fan of this building. And it wasn't just the building people were worried about, they were worried about the artwork that was on it. The entrance had platinum, bronze, hammered aluminum, and tinted glass that was backlit at night. And it also had these different I'm going to try to show them to you. These limestone art pieces, hopefully you can see this. These limestone art pieces surrounded the building. And at first he said he wasn't going to demolish it, but then he said, listen, if we do some construction, we're going to preserve these art pieces. And if we need to move one, then we'll make sure that they're donated to a museum. That's what he said. This is an eyewitness describing what happened. When I looked outside, I realized that a cluster of workmen were on scaffolding in the process of destroying the Art Deco limestone. They had masonry saws and jackhammers. A piece of art and history was being drilled to bits. It was destroyed right in front of my eyes. Suddenly, all of the gallery goers in the room noticed too. They went over to the large windows in disbelief as we watched the demolition in absolute helpless horror. The sculptures fell to the ground and cracked into smithereens. Then someone in the room said, "That effing bastard," and no one had to ask who they were referring to. He's done this before. He has done this before. But don't blame him. It's not his fault. He got it from his father. Because in 1966, Fred bought a beloved local attraction in Coney Island known as Funny Face. And he was going to preserve the more historical aspects of it and then make something different of the building, of the guts of it. Of course, that's not what happened. That is not what happened. In fact, he threw a party as they demoed it in front of the community's faces that tried to fight to save a part of their history on Coney Island. They had bikini clad, hard hat wearing models. Just never changes, does it? This is his father doing this. And as part of the promotion, they handed people bricks so they could participate by throwing them at all of the windows. That was his father destroying a Coney Island landmark before he destroyed a Manhattan landmark, before he, of course, showed contempt for the people's house and destroyed the east wing of the White House. I would be remiss if I did not add two more parts to this story. One of them is, what is that wing even used for? It's used for typically, traditionally, not just an entrance for a lot of visitors to the White House, but it is also used for the first ladies and their teams, which obviously is not necessary right now because, as we all know, there is no first lady currently serving this country, at least. The other question is, can he do this? Technically, no. Congress is supposed to have oversight on any renovation to the White House. And on top of that, the White House, including the East Wing, has been designated a historical site and a museum. So it falls under the national parks. So none of this is legal. But speaking of contempt, contempt for the laws, right? Who needs a constitution? Who needs laws? Who needs to follow the rules? Woo! Lots to cover. All right. We've got one more story for you, and it's a doozy. Our theme for tonight, if you're just joining us, has been contempt. We started the hour by celebrating the success that so many of you, 7 million and counting. There's some estimates that go even higher from the No Kings protest and the contempt that this administration showed as a response, including but not limited to an AI generated video where he defecated on all of us beneath a fighter jet where he was wearing a crown. How are those real sentences that are coming out of my mouth? Contempt, contempt, contempt. We talked about the contempt against our government and our voting rights, where we have a congresswoman who was elected a month ago who is still not sworn in. So that district has no representation, thanks to House Leader Mike Johnson. We talked about contempt for children as we deny them funding for things like cancer research. They were spoiled, honestly, those kids with cancer. They don't need that research. Secondhand research will do. Pull yourself up by your, I don't know. I got nothing. We talked about the contempt of some of our businesses and industries that they're just using as a football, essentially, a political football, including realtors and homeowners that are deeply impacted by this shutdown because we don't have flood policies that the government can issue right now. And we talked, of course, about contempt for the American people that we are continuing to see with these ICE invasions. And the concern is growing, not just because as they are escalating. I am seeing news that some of you are sharing live on the air that there's spotting of armed people, armed National Guard, I'm presuming, or ICE agents in droves in New York City. I have not confirmed that. That's some of the audience comments here. So if that is in fact the case, then please, please, please be careful. We've seen it in Chicago, we've seen it in Portland, we've seen it in Los Angeles, and now they are upping the ante by buying 700% increase. I believe it's $70 million worth of chemical weapons, ground weapons, and guided missiles. Okay, and of course, the contempt for our history. I want to tell you guys, let's see. I want to thank Stephanie for sharing the live. That's amazing. I want to thank Shirley Crenshaw for all of your support. Awesome. Sash Meister, 3 Tripo. I don't know what that means, but it's cute. Guava Girl, 33 Ellie 33. So good to see you on here. If I didn't say hi earlier, Marlene ML, Stephanie, Veronica Kennard, Inyanyeri, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Wendy R, if I didn't catch you earlier. Bemused 91, I love that. And Jolie. And we've got Kathy McGrath and Squarefoot Gardening. Plus so many more of you. We are already up to 69,000 likes, and I definitely am getting ready to sing for my supper. If you're just joining us on Political Fixer Live, this is our top story of the hour. We are going to do a little bit of storytelling here. I'm going to tell you about a young man named Kevin. And I want to, before I dive into this story, I want to give full credit to a TikTok user who turned me on to this story. Life According to Sasha. Life According to Sasha. So if you get a chance, jot that down. Life According to Sasha. Follow her. And if you can, tell her that you heard about her from Political Fixer. If you are so inclined, this story is going to make it worth your while. All right, I want you to meet a young man named Kevin. Several years ago, he was born in Lafayette, Louisiana. He had a lot of tragedy early in his life. His parents divorced when he was around 5 years old. His father struggled with alcoholism, and his brother took his own life at the age of 15. But Kevin didn't let that stop him. Kevin stuck to his focus on school. In particular, he was an Eagle Scout and he really liked debate and speech and things related to that. He was the captain of his high school quiz bowl team. He won a number of statewide debate and speech competitions, and he valued education, especially with an unstable home life. It became what his focus was. Kevin graduated magna cum laude with a degree of history from the University of Louisiana in Lafayette. He then went on to get a Master of Arts in History from Virginia Tech. He didn't stop there. Kevin went on and got a PhD in American history from the University of Texas. Now, if you get a PhD, you have to do a dissertation. You have to focus on something specialized. And in this case, Kevin chose pretty intense subject matter. The name of his dissertation was Slaves and Slavery in Louisiana: The Evolution of Atlantic World Identities. Now, this is to get his doctorate in philosophy and history. And here was his main argument. I'm going to read you just a little bit of this. All right. This is what Kevin said. And if you don't know where I'm going with this, you will. Just give it a second. So Kevin argued, quote, that enslaved Africans and African Louisianans employed a variety of tools: cultural traditions, secret and overt resistance, and a distinctive ideology of politics from the ground up to tweak, alter, and challenge the order that white authorities attempted to impose. So basically, Kevin spent years studying enslaved people, particularly enslaved Black people in the Americas, and he learned how they fought their way to get their agency, to educate themselves and each other for economic survival, how this class of people went from being enslaved to untold of discovery, shaping of our culture and history, and yes, of course, becoming president of the United States. Now, this is what Kevin studied. But this story is not just about Kevin's contempt for America that would soon be revealed. This is about Kevin's betrayal because Kevin studied the rise, particularly of Black Americans. How did he use that knowledge? Was it to start a social justice organization, to help dismantle some of the prejudices and racial hierarchy that still exists today, to fund scholarships so that other young Black people could have the same education that Kevin did under hard times, though he is white? No. Kevin ultimately went on with his career, rose up in different educational strata and in different jobs, and became the CEO of the Heritage Foundation. Kevin, Kevin Roberts, is the architect of Project 2025. Why? Because if you study how something is built, then you know exactly the most effective ways to break it. Kevin spent his life learning how to cause the most harm and the most damage he possibly could. He studied how Black Americans created power, faith, education, mutual aids, community networks, and then he wrote a plan to defund and destroy those very institutions. If you thought Project 2025 was scary before, wait until you understand. Again, thanks to the reporting by Life According to Sasha. And I to say I verified this, I have his dissertation, printed it out, verified it. Okay. You might say, well, the Project 2025 is bad for a lot of people. Yes, but it is particularly harmful to a lot of marginalized communities. And we're focusing particularly on the Black communities right now. According to the Thurgood Marshall Institute, how will Project 2025 harm Black communities? pretty self-explanatory title. Here are the bullet points. Weakening anti-discrimination laws and cutting essential worker protections. You know how the government was able to just fire anyone who had a different skin tone and say that they were a DEI hire with absolutely no study of their work performance, and just discriminately caused thousands and thousands of people, particularly Black women, to lose their jobs. That was Project 2025. Undermining Black political power by undercounting them and suppressing the Black vote. Like completely rigging how congressional districts are drawn in different states, even when it's not time to draw those congressional districts, to completely silence Black voices, and then to create additional laws and fear tactics to further suppress the votes, again, particularly of Black community members, by promoting punitive criminal legal policies like helicoptering down into an apartment building in Chicago, racially dividing different individuals. And if you have Black skin, putting you in a van and illegally detaining you by ICE, which has nothing to do at all with any reason those people should have been near that building. Jeopardizing Black families' access to affordable housing programs, like completely destroying Section 8, putting an idiot in charge of the Housing and Urban Development Organization, and just completely removing any of the programs that benefited housing or small Black businesses. Threatening reproductive rights and the health of Black people. We have talked about reproductive rights often on this show, but we cannot have a good conversation about reproductive rights if we don't talk about how disproportionately it is Black women who die while giving childbirth under these restrictive laws. And of course, continuing to exacerbate the health disparities caused by environmental racism. And I know of which I speak. I grew up in one of those environments, a largely Black community next to a refinery that pumped toxic gas and chemicals into the water, into the air, everywhere. We were breathing toxicity. And I cannot describe to you how many of my classmates, their family members, etc., have horrible diseases or who have already passed far too young. This happens across the country, largely in marginalized neighborhoods, particularly Black communities. This was by design. The theme of the show is contempt. And I think it's a little frightening to know that there is someone who sat there and studied certain people on how they could most be harmed, as if they are a serial killer evaluating their next victim. That is a little bit jarring. Now, what can we do? What can we do with all of this? We're going to talk about that first. Um, sure, Mama said, I was so proud of Kevin at the beginning of that story until it took an evil turn. I know, sure, Mama, I was as well. All right. Flint, Michigan. Oh, such a great example. Annette Baker Freeze, thank you so much. I see so many great comments here on people reacting to this story. Um, yeah, I want to tell you something that we can do about this. I'm definitely, you guys know me, I'm not going to leave you on a down note, but I want to hear your thoughts. Are we surprised by Kevin? Am I wrong to connect these dots? I don't find it circumstantial, but maybe you do. So I want to hear from you. What do you think now that you know that the architect of Project 2025, the CEO of the Heritage Foundation, dedicated his educational life to achieving a PhD in history, particularly studying the rise of Black people and what made them and makes them so strong and resilient? Right? 33 Ellie 33 says it explains a lot. Nev says, I have a brilliant mind. Nothing gets past me. Again, I want to credit the woman, Life According to Sasha, that I got this story from. I just took it to another level. And trust me, a lot gets past me. But when I latch on, you guys know me. I'm like a dog with a bone. I got to dig, dig, dig and find the rest of that story. Divine AF girl, good to see you. Nurse Coach, and he still doesn't know. Love that. Thank you to Sasha. Again, her handle, Life According to Sasha. If you guys feel up to it, definitely follow her after the show and let her know that Political Fixer was talking about her for sure. Um, Susie B1, I see Puck is on here. I see Wendy is on here. Just want to make sure we get shout outs. And I see we're already up to 83,000 likes. Let's end this night on a positive note. What can we do about this? Because that went dark, right? Like, didn't it go super dark? Like you guys were saying, we were rooting for Kevin, and Kevin took a dark turn. Okay. So Kevin turned out to be Kevin Roberts, who is the CEO of the Heritage Foundation and the architect of the infamous Project 2025. And I don't proclaim to be an expert on everything, but I do rely on resources that I trust. And the Thurgood Marshall Institute is one that I trust. So when they say this is going to harm Black communities, I will listen to them, right? So what can we do? Here's the thing. This is a shadow operator, right? This is a guy who likes to glide in, do his little evil, sprinkle his dark magic, and then get out. This is not a guy like an Elon Musk that has sought the daylight. He does not seek the press. I did not know the name Kevin Roberts. I mean, if you had paid me $1 million, could I have maybe come up with the fact he was the CEO of the Heritage Foundation? I don't know. Depends on how tired I am and how angry I am looking at torn up White House pictures. To be honest, he's not someone that was on my radar as a human. Let's change that. Let's start saying his name publicly. Let's expose him. If he wants to be quiet, let's make sure that we expose him. What can you do? You can take this content or Sasha's content or do your own research. If you're looking for this and you want to grab some of the historical facts that I just outlined for you, this live will be on YouTube about a few hours. It takes a few hours to process, and then you just go to @PoliticalFixer and you can grab it, clip it, research it, whatever you want to do, and use this information to build on and create your own content, amplify content like Sasha's content. You can post something. If you're not a video person, find the stuff. This dissertation was up there for it's a University of Texas. All you have to do is say Kevin Roberts, Heritage Foundation, dissertation, slavery, if you want. It's right there. It's free. You can download the PDF. It's like 47 pages. You can see everything this guy studied. So everything can be sourced. You can make your own graphics, your own posts. You can point to a blog article, right? Whatever you can do to amplify this, I highly recommend it. And I recommend that you tag Heritage Foundation as you do so. You can ask journalists to cover this story. This is noteworthy. Were you not entertained? Right? This story is interesting and impactful to a large number of us. Again, I want to be clear. Project 2025 impacts all of us. And I would argue all of us negatively, unless you happen to be a billionaire, in which case, why are you on my live and will you make a contribution to Equal Rights Now? But for everyone else, it impacts you negatively. But the Black community, per usual, is one of the communities that will be hit disproportionately hard by what's going on. They're not the only ones. Immigrants, people who need vaccines, women, right? The list goes on and on. Those in poverty. There's a lot of marginalized groups that will be hit by this. But I feel like we need to focus on some motive here. Focus on some motives. So push journalists to cover this. If you have a friend with a podcast, if you know someone who writes a blog or a Substack or something similar, if you want to write something, expose this dude. Kevin Roberts is his name. Make him as despised as Elon Musk. I want people polling on this guy, or our work is not done. Kevin Roberts. He should not be allowed to dismantle our government from the privacy of a behind the scenes life. Maybe we can stop him. I know 7 million and more of you tried. You're trying right now to stop this awful plan from happening. And I'm so, so proud of you. But you know what? I think he needs to get a little credit where credit is due. Let's make this guy famous. Let's make sure that people know about Kevin Roberts. And let's make sure that people know the weird, dark awfulness that makes this guy tick, right? I got a great question here, which is Annette is asking, what does he own? Great question. I will say I did not do a deep dive economically on what he owned. If I get a chance to do a piece on this, I will definitely add that on things to research. I also would like to know, like, there's got to be something that made this guy just like, I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm a racist. I'm going to get a racist tattoo. That's like this much thought, but like you're like, no, I'm a racist. I'm going to spend years studying how I can hurt an entire group of millions of people. That is some psychotic, contemptuous stuff right there. I mean, dark, dark, dark. Check his floorboards for human remains. Dark. Sasha's page. Okay, let me give you that. Definitely want to give him credit. It is she on TikTok, her handle is life according to Sasha. Very entertaining, liked her a lot. Hadn't found her since this one thing, but I like her a lot. I followed her today. Life according to Sasha. Um Jolie, he could be using his powers for good. I mean, isn't that the same of all of the MAGA in Congress right now? I mean, all of them could be actually like advancing any agenda. I would be upset if you're like, oh, you're only helping farmers, you're not helping people in urban areas. Okay, but at least you're helping farmers. But no, you're not helping anyone. Your powers are strictly being used for evil. That's fun. Okay, let's cleanse some air a little bit. All right. First of all, thank you for joining us on Political Fixer Live. This was a doozy. It's not often that you can get a few thousand friends to gather around and talk about contempt that our own government shows against us. You guys really stick with me, even when some of these topics I know sound a little off the wall. Hopefully, it paid off for you. Hopefully, you learned a little something. You felt empowered by some of this knowledge. I want to have like a more you know star just like fly across the screen, right? I hope that you feel better at the end of tonight than you did an hour ago. And I hope that you will carry some No Kings swagger with you, whether you participated or not, right? Team Inflatable Frog over here all the way. Even if I didn't get a chance to go to one of the events, I have been consuming the stories and the posters and the anecdotes and the smiles and the photos of the unicorns. Just so much greatness and joy. And that joy is getting to them. So, as dark as they are, whatever you believe, whether you believe in classic fairy tales of good versus evil or religious texts that talk about a similar squaring off a time or two between good and evil, or you have a belief in how the balance of the universe has to exist, whatever your belief is, whatever it happens to be, just know this. We know that they are not going to win. We know that they are not going to win. They are too awful and too dumb to ultimately prevail. But we also know that good people are being hurt in the meantime. There's way more of us than there are of them. I'm of the mindset this dude, number 47, only knows like 25 people. That's why they all have 15 jobs. And we see the same people over and over and over again. Marco Rubio has like 8 different jobs right now. I'm not kidding. Why? There's only like this many awful, like supervillains that they know. There's so much more that we have to offer. There's so much more joy. So, my homework for you, besides following Sasha and reading and hopefully supporting some of the articles I shared earlier, and also making sure, of course, to take care of yourself and create good content that helps other people and share some of this information if you're so inclined. Besides all of that, I want you to find one moment of joy. Do something joyful this week for yourself with a friend or a family member or just by yourself. I don't care what it is. Play some classic Nintendo, paint a picture, dance really stupid in your living room, watch a movie that you've seen a bazillion times and you can recite almost every word. Whatever it is, find that moment of joy because nothing was more illustrated this week, in my opinion, than the fact that joy is an act of resistance. I love it. I see Square Foot Gardening is going to go on a lunch date with some friends. I'm jealous. I wish I could go. Annalisa is saying joy is a great way to resist. Casey Rich is saying that I had to find my frog costume. My granddaughter helped me with that. We danced in front of police. Oh, I wish I saw video of that. That's amazing. Oh, Leia's gonna do diamond art painting. Oh, I love that. If you get a chance, share some with us next week. I'm invited to Maryland. I'm gonna take you up on that one day. Watching Father of the Bride. Okay, Yoli, I gotta know which one, the Steve Martin version or the classic version in black and white with it's gonna kill me that it's Elizabeth Taylor, right? That's the bride in that. Anyway, which one are you watching? Taking Yourself Out to Dinner. Love that. Kathy McGrath Walcott. Stacey Taylor, not easy right now, but so important. Sarah's going to karaoke on Friday night. Sarah, I'm not invited. All right, Annalisa is going. I love that there were no arrests. I love it. Oh, Eat, East meets Westy Bestie is doing a spa day. Okay, I'm getting jealous of these. The police department danced with Casey Rich. That's awesome. Jimmy Stewart version. Love it. Okay. This is amazing. Okay, so we have our homework. We have our assignment. We have almost 104,000 likes. That's not bad for a Tuesday when we are despised by the people who lead us, right, gang? On behalf of myself, the Political Fixer team, including Sarah and J Robot, our Political Fixer family members, so many of you who make our worth just our work is noticed. We feel valued. You guys lift us up when we're down. I can't thank you enough. And of course, on behalf of that lovely senior woman that held a poster board that said Grand Tifa out in DC and so many others like her almost 7 million friends and cohorts. I just want to make sure that you take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you for another wonderful evening on Political Fixer Live. Mark your calendars next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be back if we are not detained. So Tuesday next week, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm Shauna Presley Vircher. Follow me at Political Fixer. And yeah, let's do this, gang. Keep causing some good trouble. Love it so much. Kevin Roberts, can't wait to make you famous. Bye, everybody. Bye, Kelly.